So Tesla stock is at a very peculiar area because, as we know, earnings are just coming up in just a few days, which will give us an update from a fundamental perspective of where Tesla stock is. But I'm not just someone who likes to pay attention to the fundamentals or the technicals. I also look into economic data, and I scour through the entire web just to look into some new financial news, and I stumbled across this article from Bar Charts. Now, this article from Bar Charts pretty much highlights all the concerns and topics that we're absolutely going to want to parse through once we get the earnings report and also hear the forward guidance from Tesla or Elon Musk speaking. And so I wanted to share with you guys some of these topics and concerns, as they are pretty much the same topics and concerns I'm curious about. Starting with number one, which is the commentary on price cuts and margin compression. See, earlier this year, it says Tesla made its stance quite clear. It would prioritize delivery growth over margins. However, the price cuts have led to margin compression, and Tesla's operating margins plummeted to 9.6% in Q2 of 2023. While that still rates amongst the highest in the industry, right, when you compare to all the legacy automakers, that's still less than half of what they were at the peak. And so during the Q3 earnings call, I would especially watch out for the progression in Tesla's margins and any commentary that management provides about the outlook for price cuts and margin. Now, of course, this is the number one priority that we're going to want to pay attention to when the earnings roll out, because this was pretty much the main narrative for the last quarter, and seeing margin compressions was not something necessarily a lot of Tesla investors wanted to hear, and so we're going to want to get an update on that. Another interesting topic is Tesla's advertising plans. It says that Tesla has largely refrained from advertising its vehicles, even after Musk said at the shareholder meeting in May that the company might try advertising its cars. But with Tesla's deliveries falling short of expectations in 3 quarters of 2023, the company might discuss its advertising plans during the Q3 earnings call. Now, this is something that is pretty much having a lot of Tesla bulls divided, which is unfortunate because at the end of the day, if you're a Tesla bull, all you really want is for Tesla to do well. But there's two different schools of thinking. You have on one end where many Tesla bulls say, no, Tesla does not need to spend a dime on advertising because Elon Musk is pretty much the advertising vehicle for Tesla. He has a mass audience of followers on X.com, and pretty much he doesn't need to spend money, or Tesla doesn't need to spend money on advertising because Elon Musk can simply share it. And also there's the price cuts, and that stirs up demand. Now, I do agree to somewhat of that narrative that yes, Elon Musk does have that leverage of having that popularity, and Tesla can do well because of stirring up demand with price cuts. But then you also have the other side of the stick, where you have fund managers like Gary Black say, well, hey, there's only so much that price cuts can do, and there's only so much that Elon Musk can do on social media by having this large presence. And at the end of the day, you have to target the individuals who are not on Twitter. You have to target the individuals who don't know about the features about Tesla, and the only way to do that is by spending dollars on advertising. So this is going to be a topic that we're going to want to hear in the next earnings call. Now, another factor that we're going to want to pay attention to is delivery guidance. See, Tesla has maintained its 2023 delivery guidance of 1.8 million vehicles, which says over here. However, as we get towards the end of the year, it will be crucial to watch the guidance for 2024. Tesla expects its deliveries to grow at a compound average growth rate of 50% over the long term, but the growth was below that threshold in 2022, and going by the guidance, it's set to look far short of 50% in 2023. And so it goes on to say that on a similar note, watching the commentary on Cybertruck production, which is something I talked about in previous videos as well, and delivery timelines should also be worthwhile, right? It says that the model is running behind schedule, which of course we know it's a different type of car, it makes sense. And it says that the commencement of deliveries here would help Tesla expand its target market and increase its shipments. And lastly, goes on to say the demand environment in China. So he says earlier this year, Musk admitted to constraints on its ability to expand in China, while the country literally rolled out red carpets for Tesla, even allowing it to set up operations without partnering up with a Chinese automaker, as was previously the norm. The relationships between the two sides have grown complex over the last couple of years. Meanwhile, even as Musk has denied that it faces any demand issues in China, its sales in the world's biggest automotive market have fell almost 11% year over year in September, even while overall new energy vehicles, rose 22.1% over the period. And so during the earnings call, it says that Tesla might talk about the demand situation in China along with the competitive environment in this country. Now, in my opinion, I honestly don't believe that this is going to be a topic that's going to be shared. I think that this is going to be something that's kind of skipped over. And as a Tesla investor, I do trade Tesla in the short term, but I am a Tesla long-term bull. This is something we really want to hear about, because at first my idea was that, hey, maybe the sales in September in China were falling down because of the refresh of the new Model 3 upgrade, right, which was taking place. But when you go to a lot of the websites, a lot of Chinese forums highlighting the new update for the Model 3, they seem to be kind of trash talking it, and it just looks like overall the idea of Tesla in China is kind of falling down. Like, the sentiment is not as strong as it used to, and this is something that is a huge concern, because as we know, China is a huge market and we want to see Tesla thrive in China. And so we want to see what is currently going on with the situation in China. Now, if we take a look at the heat map for today's trading session, we see that the overall markets were pretty much green. Now, this kind of aligns with what I told the Push and Profit private group yesterday, where I said that yes, we did see relief in October, as I talked about. However, international conflicts have introduced some shifts to the markets, but nonetheless, I remain optimistic, anticipating more forward momentum than setbacks as we approach the month's end. Now, one of the main comments and DMs that I have been getting is, what are my predictions for Tesla stock's earnings, or where do I think Tesla's going to be before its earnings? And honestly, I have to admit that it's not, easy. I don't have a crystal ball to get and tell you guys what levels I see for Tesla. And I believe that right now, as a trader, of course, or even as an investor, you're going to want to go ahead and pause on Tesla. I know there's a lot of traders that love to pretty much gamble on earnings calls, but I am someone who likes to stay away from that, as there's something called implied volatility in the options world when it comes to trading earnings. And also, as a long-term investor, I don't want to pull any triggers to sell or buy when I don't necessarily have the full fundamental picture. Now, yes, we do have a little bit of a glimpse of what we could expect, because we've seen the price cuts in real time. We also got the delivery numbers. So yeah, we do have models, right, as an investor, of what we think Tesla earnings can look like. But at the end of the day, we don't have the full picture. And so that's why, as a trader or even a long-term investor, really the direction for Tesla could vary greatly, especially with the nuance of forward guidance in an earnings report or an earnings call. And so, at this moment, it's pretty much like a pause situation for me, where I'm not really touching Tesla at all at this moment. Now, before we hop into my laptop talking about Tesla stock from a technical perspective, I want you guys to look at this tweet here highlighting that Fed Harkins reiterates rates hikes are likely done. Now, this goes along with what I've been saying for a while, that it's unlikely that the Feds are going to hike in their next meeting for November. But of course, let's go ahead and hop into my laptop and really just take a deeper dive of Tesla from a technical standpoint, and then we'll also talk about some ideas in regards to monetary policy. Alrighty, so we are officially in my laptop taking a look at Tesla stock from a technical perspective, and we see that Tesla stock did indeed have a green day. If we actually look closer on a closer time frame, we see that Tesla did hold up above 251 if you exclude what ended up happening in the after hours. So we see kind of held up, but let's go ahead and actually map out the day for Tesla. So we saw from the open of today to the close, roughly about 1.5%, so not like a crazy day. But I do want to point out to something that is a bit concerning in regards to Tesla stock and also the overall markets, right? And this actually has nothing to do with the technicals, but more of just looking at the macroeconomic data, right? Or the macroeconomic environment. So if we actually take a look, we see treasuries are pushing upwards, and despite treasuries pushing upwards, we did have the stock market do well, so that's a bit good. That's good news. But what we know is that there are going to be more bonds that are going to be auctioned in just a couple of days. In fact, it's going to be right around when Tesla does their earnings report. And so what's concerning, and let's go ahead and show you guys this so you guys can see, we have the statement over here just showing us that new bonds are going to be issued. It has all the information. Now, the reason why I'm pretty much showing you guys this is because last time we saw the treasuries start coming downwards for the beginning of October, and this has been one of the main reasons why we saw some relief in October. But we saw treasury spike up just a couple of days ago. Now, why was that? Well, last Thursday we had a bond auction, and one of the concerns is that there's not enough demand for these bonds, and so that definitely made bonds of course go downwards, which made the yields go up, which is why we saw the 10-year treasury spike up that day. It did pretty much come down again. But one of the main concerns is if we have another bond auction where there's just not enough demand, that could again spike the 10-year treasury up again and cause some pain for the markets. Just like we saw, let's actually look at this. Let's pay attention to this. So we saw, and you know what? Let's not only look at Tesla. Let's look at the overall S&P 500. We saw that again, October, this relief. I have been calling it Uptober for a while. Of course, we had the conflicts with the Middle East, but more importantly, just a couple of days ago on Thursday, right, we had that big sell-off after the news of the bond auction. And so if this happens again where we have another auction and again there's no demand, the 10-year treasury could spike up, causing more pain for the market. So something that we want to be aware of, again, this is something that's temporary. The main driver for Tesla, of course, as I've been saying, is going to be the fundamentals. That's going to be the biggest driver. But if we have bad news for Tesla's earnings as well as forward guidance being bad, and then of course the 10-year treasury spiking up, that could also be just calamitous for any Tesla traders who are not prepared, or investors who may just get shooken out of their positions. And so I want us to just be aware of that. Now, looking into monetary policy, as I've stated for a while now, this is contracting. The future markets are now pricing in that there is only a 6.8% chance that the Feds are going to hike about 25 basis points for the next meeting on November 1st. This is something I've called out, saying that it's unlikely that the Feds are going to hike because it's not necessary. And what we're seeing is that this is declining. We saw this go from 20 down to 18, 12. Last week it was just 12. Now we're at 6.8. And I think with some of the positive rhetoric we heard from the Feds so far today, we're possibly going to see this go down even further. But we know that this week is also littered with a bunch of Fed speakers. And so that's something that's going to cause some volatility for the market. So if you're a Tesla trader or investor, look, this is going to be a challenging week simply because we're going to hear a lot of different rhetoric from the Fed members, a lot of the members of the FOMC. We have earnings, we have some issues that may arise from the bond market, and then of course we don't know if maybe geopolitical tensions may escalate. So there's a lot on the line over here, and of course we're just going to want to pay attention to everything and stay data dependent. Now, as I've said, I am long-term bullish on Tesla, and this is simply because we're seeing the trends of EVs. Yeah, there's some quirks and kinks that need to be really kind of cleaned out with Tesla, but I do have faith that Tesla is going to be a dominant player in the EV space going forward. And so if Tesla does have a bad earnings, well, I'm just going to be looking at major levels, and if those levels get broken, well, those are just areas for me to watch out for. Again, technical analysis is not something used to predict the markets, it's used to just measure the markets. And so one area I'm looking at over here is this 235 area. I want to see if Tesla touches this area, does it hold above, or if it went down to this area, would it break below? Breaking below would be a little bit concerning, as we know that we have this volume pocket, lots of very little volume relative to price, which means that when there's buying pressure or selling pressure around this area, it pushes up the order books heavily. In fact, if we see over here, when there was buying pressure, very little volume relative to price, Tesla stock flew upwards. But what would happen if there's selling pressure around over here? Well, Tesla stock would fly down. And so again, we're going to want to see, do the buyers step in? Of course, same plan that I always do for my long-term portfolio. Last time when Tesla sold off, I talked about it coming down for a while. A lot of individuals were calling me crazy, saying it was going to fall down, but profit margins were a big issue. That was a big narrative for the last earnings call, and I talked about how the early 200s, that's what I'm going to want to pay attention to, as I had it mapped out before. This is actually a previous support and resistance area. I'm not going to zoom back out to show you guys, but basically what we saw was around over here, we did have the buyer step in, and we had Tesla stock push up, and as it pushed up, it got rejected again by this descending trend line. Now, if Tesla does actually have a good earnings, which I don't think it's likely. But again, I could be surprised. Maybe the other services, energy, ticks up way more than is expected. And I mean, you never know with these earnings calls, right? And so that's why we wait for those reports to happen. And so if we have good earnings, and looking at the bull case, right, we talked about the bear case and what I would do as a long-term investor. But if we have the bull case and things push upwards, again, the area I'm going to be watching up over here is going to be this descending trend line that we've had Tesla stock get rejected on for a while. So that's pretty much what I'm going to be looking at. And I do want to clarify that I try to provide a bull and bear case as at the end of the day, as an investor or a trader, you have to have a plan. For example, if it breaks above this area, once Tesla breaks above this descending trend line, that would signify that Tesla is in the uptrend, and that would be another indicator for me to go ahead and add into my long-term portfolio. I like buying in when there's a lot of selling pressure and then confirmation of an uptrend, or buying in when there is a new broken trend upwards. Again, it's just having different scenarios. You can't just have one prediction and not have a plan if things go the other way. You got to have a game plan. And so that's my game plan for Tesla as a long-term investor. Of course, trading Tesla right now, I'm going to be honest, I'm not trading Tesla. I don't like to trade at these levels when we're close to these earnings. As I said, it could be very risky. Maybe the shares for intraday scalp is fine. Someone trading a move like this is completely fine. But as we get closer to earnings, I'd rather sit out. And once we have the earnings, of course, I'll go ahead and update you guys with what's going on with Tesla and provide my idea of going forward, just as I did last time when Tesla was around over here and I talked about it selling all the way to the 215 areas. Am I going to call it exactly how I did last time? No. I want you guys to remember I don't have a crystal ball. I just try to look at things from a holistic perspective by looking at economic data, fundamentals, technicals, and of course, alternative data. With that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to also, before you guys go, watch this next video right over here. And if you guys seen that video before, then also consider watching this video right over here. And I'll see you guys on those next videos. Take care, guys.